Welcome to the NCDWI Guide podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NCDWI guy, Jake Minick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to episode 110 of the NCDWI Guy podcast. On today's episode, I have a very special guest. In fact, he's like a brother to me. In fact, he is my brother. Jeremy Minick is on the podcast today talking with me about all things marketing. Blast of a conversation with my brother. I'm actually recording this intro on his birthday. So happy birthday, Jeremy. But today we go through really the history of marketing at my office. Jeremy was with me in the early days. He's just a teenager helping me out with some of the marketing that I was doing at kind of very low level, helping me send advertisement letters. And then slowly, well, actually pretty quickly progressed up in terms of what he was contributing to the firm, and single-handedly has done the most for our firm marketing wise of any person that has worked at the office. Helped us hugely advance our SEO position in his early days working with the firm. Ultimately, when he was 20 years old, right after graduating from college, started his own marketing company, Enable Design, grew that design company, that marketing SEO company really quickly. And then now is the marketing director at SmartRoof, which is a large construction company. So just has a amazing mind for all things under the sun marketing, and had a blast of a conversation going back through some of the great moments and some of the mistakes that were made along the marketing path at our office. But this will be really helpful to you, I think, in terms of figuring out ways to advance your marketing and what you need to do in order to take your firm to the next level. Hope you enjoy it. I don't know. I don't even know where to start. I guess we just like dive into it. So you ready?
Let's do it, baby.
Let's do it. So we're going to go back. We're going to start at the beginning. Rich's office up on Montfort Avenue. Jeremy, you're there in the early days of Minick Law. Let's take a trip down memory lane. Tell me what were your takeaways from the early moments of the firm?
Yeah, I mean, as you and I were talking about the other day, it's just so cool to, I've been basically there with Minick Law since the beginning, right? Like when you were starting with Rich Maida in Asheville, at that point you had been interning with him. So I had really seen you at the beginning, through law school and your journey and internship with Rich. And then kind of fast forwarding a couple of years, you had worked at another firm coming out of law school, but then decided to start your own practice. And as we were talking about the other day, I was there when like literally you and I were essentially working out of a cubicle and a closet, right? The cubicle was the office, the closet was the call center, and the conference room was the place to meet with clients, but shared obviously with the entire rest of Rich's team, which was an entirely different law firm. So it's just so cool to see, going back to the very beginning stages, and then obviously looking at where Minick Law is today as a big name and a big practice throughout the whole state of North Carolina, and the team that's been built up and how they've helped build up Minick Law throughout the entire journey. So it's incredible just to watch. Obviously, you look at the beginning, you look at where Minick Law is today, and like so many things in life, it's easy to look at where Minick Law and where you're at today and say, man, I wish I had that, or, oh man, it must be so easy now that the practice is that big. But of course you miss all the hard work and the sweat and the humble beginnings, right, of where it started. So it's incredible. And as we were talking about, again, it was just like, you just dove right into it. What kind of goes through your mind? What do you think about those first days with Rich?
Yeah, it is funny. I mean, to like go all the way back. I mean, so when Pop had an apartment on Montfort Avenue, I can remember like one of my, best summers was that summer before I got married, working at Rich's office. And a lot of the days began playing FIFA with you early in the morning. You must have been like 10 years old playing FIFA and then heading out to work, sometimes coming back and playing FIFA on the lunch break, whatever it could be fit in. But yeah, it was a long time. And then, several years later, came back and worked with Rich after law school. But the opportunity to work in Rich's office was such a game changer for me because it kept the overhead low. Like the overhead was so low. Like that closet was such a funny place to work out of. But I have like such fond memories of that spot because it allowed me the freedom to do what I wanted to do with like literally no cost concern. I mean, it was basically not just free rent, but basically, kind of a steady source of income to do a few closings a month at his office while trying to get my criminal practice off the ground. So I have just like great memories of that office. But then, when you came aboard and started doing what everybody I think at the office has done, or at least most of us have done at the office, which is sending out the letters. Basically hundreds of letters, plugging in the music, whatever it is that keeps you distracted, but sending out letters to people that were charged with DWIs, drug offenses, traffic tickets, whatever we were sending letters out for, that has in a lot of ways become the rite of passage at the office. So I kind of like to get your perspective of the rite of passage that is the mailings that we send out.
Yeah, I think one of the things that goes through my mind when I think about the mailings that were sent out, and obviously just like, the what they are, it's basically sending out letters to people who have been, charged specifically, especially with the DWI or other criminal charge. And basically they show up in the system and you're then able to get their name and their home address and things like that. Right. And so you're sending letters to them. And so in that sense, I mean, this is basically, as direct marketing as it gets, right? I mean, it's basically like, I know you have a need. I know the timing is going to be there and I'm going to hit you like right there. And I mean, it's basically the next closest thing. It's like equivalent to cold calling, equivalent to showing up at the door. I mean, it's in that category, right? Of like direct marketing, sniper shots, right? In a sense of who you're sending it to. And so what it makes me think of is, where I'm at today, basically a marketing director at a major roofing company in the nation. And the primary way that we generate business is through door-to-door marketing. And simply put, door-to-door is that type of marketing that just simply most people are not willing to do. They're not willing to go through the uncomfortableness of it. They're not willing to go through the awkwardness of that encounter. But it is one of the most powerful ways that you could possibly build up your sales base, right? Because you get to target exactly who you want to work with. The area, the property, the size of the house, et cetera. You get to work exactly with who you want to work with. And you are really taking ownership over your pipeline. And so in kind of like where I'm at today and like that being so much the culture, and I think back to the very beginning and letters, I mean, it truly is this sort of grit and grind and humble start. It's like, I'm not necessarily going to dive into the ads game. I'm not necessarily going to be up on the billboards. I'm not necessarily going to be, spending thousands. I'm going to spend a very minimal amount of money and I'm going to put in the sweat equity to get the first couple of clients. And honestly, I mean, it's something you could do at scale as well. But that's especially what goes through my mind is just looking for marketing opportunities in places, especially at the beginning, where others are not willing to work or to look, I should say. So that's what goes through my mind.
Yeah, I think that in terms of that comparison, one of the things that is unique about how we did the letters is we did them in-house. I'd say probably the majority of attorneys over the past, 15, 20 years that have sent letters out have outsourced the actual letter sending. You can send a copy of your letterhead, what you want the letter to say. Certain fields can then be like populated through the information that is coming from the data company that you decide to use, but then they basically are responsible for sending all of the letters out. And we never really outsourced that piece. It was always, we're going to send our own letters, and it was incredibly time consuming. And I would spend in the early days 2 hours, 3 hours a day, sending out letters, folding letters, getting paper cuts, originally for like a very short period of time, licking the envelopes and then realizing my tongue was not going to stay put together. So basically having like the very professional bottles that you could get to moisten the seal. But the reason that we did that wasn't a cost reason. It was to control the content that you put into the letter. So, easily you can then change the letterhead without having to go out to a third-party agency and ask them to change it or send them changes and then get it reviewed. Adding a piece of content like the brochures that we've sent out and updated, but kind of always like having that one piece extra in the letter that explains who we are, that has pictures, which a lot of the other letters didn't have. It was kind of like we've got the ability to control the content. So in terms of that comparison of the door-to-door salesperson, I think what is, one of the ways to make sure that you're, differentiating yourself is with some marketing, you have to outsource it. Other marketing, can be outsourced. And then some marketing is better kept in-house. And with that, like door-to-door sales piece, it would be pretty strange to contact a company. And it's not to say it's impossible, but it'd be pretty strange to contact another company and have them kind of going door to door doing all of your sales without having like your own reps kind of doing that, who know the company, the culture, who know what the process is, what timelines are going to look like. And there's that kind of constant, conversation going back and forth with the letters. That was one of the main things that throughout our existence, we've kept that in-house, because it's like we can differentiate from a lot of other letters just by the way that we put it into our own envelope, the way that we put some extra piece of content in there, business card, brochure, attorney card, whatever it might be. There's that ability to differentiate. So the letters are a rite of passage, but also have a purpose behind them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think too, like, this doesn't necessarily flow right from the letters, but one of the things I was thinking about is that, marketing, and this I think can be kind of almost a guide for our conversation as we talk about Minick Law's marketing and the progressions that were made. I think marketing is so often first looked at as a what or a how. What are we going to do with our marketing this year? Or how are we going to generate leads? Kind of really diving kind of into these like nitty-gritty layers, especially with the mindset of lead gen. But fundamentally, I think with so much of Minick Law's marketing tactics throughout the years and why it's been successful is that we've always started from a who place. And marketing is fundamentally a who kind of question first, more than it is, I think, the what and the how, right? And the clearer that you can get on who you're marketing to, that defines then how you'll reach them, what problems you'll help them solve, the conversation, of course, that you'll have with them, and how to connect with them on a really real and human level, which is so much about what marketing, Minick Law's marketing has been about, is that human connection. You mentioned obviously the pictures and the brochures. Other attorneys weren't doing that. They weren't humanizing their marketing. They weren't showing a face of the firm or faces of the firm. When it came to, I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but when it came to the website, that was created. One of the first big investments other than the website that you made was into photography, right? Professional photos, I think on 2 to 3 occasions to make sure that it was done right and done really well. To again, like humanize the brand. And the next progression was the video from Crisp, right? To really humanize the brand, and on and on and on. One, it was the who are we as a firm and how will we show ourselves to the public? But then also, again, who are we talking to? I mean, that's the most fundamental question. Who are we talking to and helping? And then we can start to figure out what problems do they have and how will we help them solve those problems and connect through marketing materials and finding them in the right places and lead gen, et cetera. And so, yeah, I guess kind of going back to you, I mean, the progression from the letters, what was like one of the next big things that you went through your mind? I feel like we kind of had talked about the EMyth. When you were reading that, what went through your mind from a marketing perspective and kind of a brand building perspective?
Yeah, that must have been, I would assume, like kind of maybe right there at the beginning. I think it was around 2011, 2012 that we went to the beach, and brother-in-law Mike said, "Hey, why don't you read this book?" And just completely blew my mind. It was like one of those moments where you really can't sleep well because your brain is like racing with like the ideas of this is totally changing what we're going to do. And, I think that I have a real like kind of dive in, but then fail to commit mindset on a lot of things, like, hey, let's go try this thing. And then within 2 or 3 weeks, it's like, okay, that's boring now. Let's go try something else. But with the EMyth, there was like total buy-in on my end, total commitment. And it's kind of lasted up until the present time, just something in that, really it's a story, something in that story really like touched what it is that we're trying to do from a systems perspective. So yeah, I'd be curious because I know that you were doing a lot of the letter work at the time. I came back. I think I sat down with you and with Henry in the conference room. It was like, this is going to change how we operate and we're going to grow. And it's like, literally it was me, Henry, and then my part-time, very much junior brother that was sitting in this room of like, hey, we're going to make this thing big. So
yeah, totally. And it makes me think of, in leadership, so much of leadership is obviously not the title, right? It's not about the position that you have. It's about who you are, right? And so when it comes to leadership, so often, like even within a firm, let's say you're not even the firm owner, you're within a firm, it's about doing the job before you get the title. That is when true promotion, like true ingenuity and creation and development and business development, like that's when it happens, is when you start doing the job before you've got the title. And so I think in your case, like what was so powerful about your experience with the EMyth, and I saw that transformation in you, firsthand. And at the time, I can't remember exactly how it was, probably 15, 16 years old, somewhere in that range at the time. Not really knowing much about business, not really understanding entrepreneurship, but watching your journey. I mean, I even at the time, like just thinking back, I saw a transformation in you. I couldn't speak to what it was. I couldn't speak clearly as I do now and what I see, but I saw there was a transformation that took place in you. And it wasn't a transformation of, oh, well, Jake got a promotion to CEO or Jake got a promotion to entrepreneur. It wasn't about a title. It wasn't about a position. It was about you recognizing a new identity that, hey, if this business is going to grow, I've got to take off I'm the star of the team cap. I'm the guy who does the work cap. And I've got to put on essentially the service cap, right? How am I going to help other people flourish within this business? How am I going to replace myself within this business of what I do in the day-to-day? And you began to fundamentally put that on paper far before you ever even necessarily needed it, right? And I think that vision was like so much about what allowed you to grow. And with Henry, I think he bought into that, right? He saw, hey, this guy's got a vision. This guy's got a plan. Even though I don't know quite where this is all heading, I can tell he's got a bigger picture in mind, right? And that's contagious.
Yeah,
when that happens.
Yeah, it was so amazing. Again, I think that sometimes you do really get lucky along the way, and given that you are where you are and grew your business to what it was. I mean, that this kind of entrepreneurial like kind of enthusiasm that you've always had. Henry definitely has that bug as well. So the fact that there was no naysayers in the early days just made that so easy, because I feel like if, one of the three of us or one of the early people that kind of bought into the firm had just been like, I don't know if that's a good idea. Why don't we just kind of stay with what we're doing? It'd have been easy to probably either take a different direction completely or slow down. And instead it was like, hey, this is exciting. Let's get this moving. We don't know exactly what we're doing or how we're going to get there, but this seems like a fun journey. So I do feel really blessed in terms of having you involved in the firm from such an early age and so influential throughout. Like, I mean, it's been pretty awesome. I think in terms of kind of what happened, after that, I was kind of trying to remember what the transition looked like, because, I remember the letter days at Rich's office. And then I remember, very much being involved in the marketing after you graduated from college and started your own marketing company. But I kind of don't remember what the in-between looked like. So
yeah.
What was that, Jeremy? I can't recall.
Yeah, basically, the long and short of it was in the middle of high school. So I was working, there in Asheville at Roman's Takeout. Getting my workout in, running deliveries all over town. Outside of that too, I think I was working as a valet at the Grove Park Inn.
Yep, that's right.
But for about 5 hours a day, I was working like 3 to 5 hours a day. I was working at Minick Law, basically on the website. So I think you had a website developed by somebody else, and I don't know like what that project looked like, et cetera. But at some point you got a website developed, and the conversation basically went, hey, I need somebody who can just kind of come in here and learn more about website development, learn more about search engine optimization, and ultimately help us, kind of really build this thing out and attract people online. And again, fast forwarding just especially a little bit, I feel like that really picked up, as I always told you and joked with our long-term vision at one point was like, hey, Jeremy's going to kind of follow the footsteps of his brother. He's going to go to law school as well. He's going to graduate,
that's right.
come back to the firm. And I called you up, I think somewhere amidst either sophomore or junior year. I was on my way to class, and I had been thinking a lot about like the upcoming summer, and I was thinking about job hunt and what I was going to do. And long story short, I called you up and I basically said, hey man, I don't think in the long run that going to law school, potentially incurring more debt and wearing a suit every day is going to be for me. But I'm still a poor, broke college student. So what work do you have for me this summer? And that's really when the conversation like kicked off in a major way. If you said, well, hey, I'll basically pay to play. Like I really want to invest into online marketing in particular. And I need somebody to come in and kind of focus on that. And so, I mean, I had no experience, no credibility whatsoever to come in and do that. So I just dove right in and started learning. And so we started building out a ton of different landing pages through different cities around Asheville, on different practice areas. I was writing, obviously being in college, I was a pretty good writer and communicator. And so I was writing a lot of blog posts, writing a lot of the content for these pages. And basically, working to build out a massive network of landing pages for the website. So I think that was the next major progression, was your investment into SEO.
Yeah, there's a couple of like different tangents I want to take off of that, because that just sparked a bunch of stuff. I was really having like a memory gap of when did it go from the letters to like Enable Design is now doing my marketing. I could not place that, but that just brought back a like flood of memories. And so I got a couple of points. First of all, there was something really kind of I think powerful that I think maybe we can dive into a little bit more in detail later, about basically saying, that people would ask me, especially, 4 or 5 years after practicing, 6 years. So, the longer the practice, the more people would ask this question, like, who does your marketing? And I would be like, well, it's my brother's web company. And it was almost like, damn, that's where he's getting all this juice. Like, he's got this, it's this is his awesome brother that's taking care of that. And there was a lot of truth in that, but there was also a lot of like, kind of like, I felt like I had this secret weapon, that other people couldn't tap into. It wasn't like it was Thomson Reuters, Fine Law, Avo that was doing this. It's like, no, my brothers got me covered. But the reason I think it's interesting to talk about that now, we can kind of dive in a little bit more on how some of those conversations then like played out a little bit later in the conversation. But the reason I think that's important now is because I think a lot of people had in their mind, there's this crazy marketing genius that is like behind Minick Law. And really it's like a, high school, early college age kid. That's, it's not like we were computer geeks growing up, that we were just like coding stuff or doing something. It's just basically like how, good writing skills basically won the day. That was kind of like the let's find an easy platform, WordPress, to kind of put these landing pages up and just write content that makes sense. And in the early days of web development, to me, like, web development started with this idea that I'm going to pay a company, whether that's a big company like Avo or a small company, one man show that's local. I'm going to pay somebody to build my website, and that's a one-time fee, right? They're going to give me a homepage, 5 landing pages, a contact us page, and about us page, and that's what I'm going to get. Here's the cost of the package. I put that up. Boom! Now I'm set. I've got my online. And for us, it was always just like about how can we keep adding content? How can we make the content more specific, whether that's location pages? And I, when you said that a few minutes ago, building out all of those individual like DWI landing pages, I bet you we had 30 plus landing pages, for different cities, DWI based landing pages. And obviously some of that strategy has changed over the years, but it was more about generating the content and not so much about worrying, getting all of the SEO right, getting all the code right, figuring out, all of the like nitpicky stuff. It's just basically like, hey, let's put something up there that people could click on and see what happens. And so I love that I love the experimentation that was allowed through that, because we gained a tremendous benefit, from the firm side of things. And then I think on your end of things, that kind of gave that creative surge of like, dang, this is not that difficult, like this is not that, there's no rocket science going on here. This is, just basically putting up relevant content.
Yeah, totally. And I think it brings to mind 2 major ideas of kind of how I started Enable, and bringing up that story mainly to bring up why I got into marketing, and then circling that back to, Minick Law. The first thing it brings to mind is just basically the simple but tremendously like important, powerful statement, which is you cannot outsource your brand. And that is one thing that you have never done along the way. You have outsourced at certain times your search engine optimization and aspects of it. You have outsourced your Google ads. You have outsourced marketing like billboards or being at the Asheville tourist thing like that. You have outsourced many different aspects of marketing, but the one thing you cannot outsource is your brand. And maybe that's a topic of, okay, well, what the heck is brand, right? We can talk about that later, but that is something you can never outsource. And fundamentally, that is the driver of all kick butt marketing. If you want true return on investment, right? True, like, whoa, this was the campaign that kicked butt. It was always all built on probably a foundation of brand, unless you truly are striking gold in like a really like lucky and like random way with the right time in the right place, et cetera. I mean, like, but that's relying on luck, basically from a marketing standpoint. So you cannot outsource your brand. But I think as well, what was so powerful about search engine optimization, here's like a really interesting thought, and how I started Enable and why I started a marketing company right out of college was, when I think about, your journey with Minick Law starting in, I think about my journey with starting a marketing company that grew up to about 7 full-time people focused on helping law firms, contractors, and other small businesses. How did 2 guys who went to a liberal arts school, both majoring in philosophy, right? The question, of course, at every family gathering was, what the heck are you going to do with a philosophy degree, right? Well, it ain't going to be becoming a philosopher, right? No. I'm not going to be able to put food on the table. But the one thing that philosophy really does teach you how to do extremely well is ask the right questions, right? And I think John Maxwell, but so many others as well, have emphasized like great leaders ask great questions.
Yeah.
And if you want to think about how to grow your marketing, if you want to think about how to grow the recruiting and the talent acquisition for your firm, if you want to think about how to grow your brand, if you want to think about how to become the dominant law firm in your area, you better ask the right questions. And so with marketing, like what was so attractive to me was so much of marketing seemed to just be about, it's just about understanding who are we talking to? What are the problems that that specific client or customer base of yours has? And how are we going to reach them? And you just continue to repeat that process of those 3 questions, who, what, and how, over, and over again. And maybe the 4th one to throw in there would be when, right? So who are we talking to? What are the problems that they have that we can solve? How will we solve them, and how will we reach them? And when will we do it by? Because nothing happens without a deadline. And so like when it comes to search engine optimization, basically there's a great marketing book out there, which is called They Ask, You Answer. I mean, that is what search engine optimization is, right? It's about people asking questions and seeking who will be the expert. And you then create content to show up right there in front of them in their time of need and in their time when they're searching for an answer to that question. So it just made so much sense why SEO seemed like it was just so obvious why that was the way to go for Minick Law at the time, right? 2 philosophy guys thinking about asking the right questions. How do we reach people who have questions, right? I mean, like search engine optimization was just the fertile soil upon which to plant, right? And so that's kind of why that next progression, I think, really resonated with both you and I.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. A couple of thoughts in terms of what you just said. Never outsourcing your brand. I think that was one of the mistakes that I made, or kind of like slow progressions that I made in the early days of the firm. There was something about kind of the website that it started out as a brochure, and then basically kind of evolved into multiple layers of brochures that were all kind of inconsistent with one another. There was a lot of, problems. So when I started out, I can't even remember the name of the company that I used based out of Charlotte that developed the first website, but it was very much just basically you get your homepage, 5 landing pages, whatever. They did this for, thousands of other businesses, other law firms. You're getting basically the same template, web design, cookie cutter website that everybody else is getting. And so the one, that's where it started, and it was a good start. But the one like major decision that really helped, I think, from that was I bought the domain name Minick Law going into that, so that if I ended the contract with them, I could hold on to the domain name. And then when we left them, we updated the website several different times, had a number of different web developers that touched the website. It was probably somewhere between 5 and 10 that put in a pretty good amount of work over a, basically 3 to 5 year period of going from that kind of first generation of the website to before you got involved or Enable got involved. And the multiple hands that touched the website were really problematic. I mean, it left a lot of like back end problems on the website. There was a ton of cleanup, inconsistent messaging, things redirecting to the wrong location. So that the idea that you can just hire somebody to come in and do these like one-time jobs is not realistic. I think if you want to have like a good brand based website, like there's got to be thought process about how you're creating content, this kind of longer term strategy, but also consistency, and the less cooks that you have in the kitchen when it comes to the development of the website, the better. So I feel like when you became the kind of lead web marketing person for the firm, that's really when there was a total different layer of traction that happened online, because of the fact that it's like, okay, one person is working on this, but also there is this kind of strategy element. When you're outsourcing the web design, so much of the time it's basically like the other person just needs, okay, give me the information, we'll create all of the content for it, and we'll post it. And the reason that a lot of companies can do that relatively quickly is they've already got templates created for all that. So it's not unique to your brand, it's not unique to your firm. There is some of this answering of questions, but it may not be even based on your own state. It may not be based on your local area for sure. It's just that kind of cookie cutter website. So as soon as we were able to really like kind of grab that by the horns, and it took too long. I mean, I did outsource that for too long of a period, but that was a real game-changing moment for the firm, was being able to have that web design in-house, because then, like you said, you can answer all those questions in a much more meaningful way, because you're answering it from not just the legal field answering the question, but your person, your office answering those questions.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, basically you're absolutely right. The next progression that we took with the marketing, when we went from, okay, this investment into search engine optimization, you said 30, I don't remember the exact number of landing pages that we built out, but I honestly feel like it was probably upwards of more like 100. I mean, we had hundreds of pages on the website.
The blog articles, I mean, where I think we
got up at one point to over 400 blog posts, and I'm not sure if you all have continued to crank out at quite that level, but I mean, it was at a certain point where there were about 400 URLs, on the website, and the majority of those basically were blog posts and landing pages. So in any case, after that investment of SEO, I think you're absolutely right. The next big key step was, again, into brand, especially as it relates to the logo and the website. And I think, it's easy to get caught up in marketing in the one sense. So there's sort of, let me say it this way. One of the big marketing concepts that's often shared is this idea of the field of dreams. In other words, if you build it, they will come. And so a lot of marketers use that field of dreams concept. I used to use it to sell search engine optimization, right? Like, in other words, hey, Mr. Client, like, if you build a really nice website, but you don't have landing pages, and you don't have radio ads, and you don't have a podcast, and you don't have social media accounts, and you're not driving people back to it, they won't come, right? And that's true. Like, they won't come. It's not, it's just like the field of the dreams. Like, I'm sorry, it's not like the field of dreams. Like, if you build it, they aren't coming. They need to know about it from other marketing tactics that you have. But I think the other extreme is that you take that too far, and then all you focus on is how to drive people to the online office, your website, or potentially even to your physical office location. And you forget about, what does that look like? What experience is it like when they get there? And so you see all these websites online that have just landing page after landing page after landing page. Don't get me wrong, those tactics can work to a degree, but what happens when they get there and there's so much written content that frankly they're not reading and they don't care about and doesn't apply to them, and they're not interested in spending the time to dig through? Like, do they get an impression from your website that you are the most well-dressed attorney in the room, that you're the polished one, that you're the one who looks, whether you are or not, right? Do you look like the expert? And that was like the huge progression that Minick Law's marketing made with its logo and website development. And I was fortunate to be able to bring that to you by way of a designer who I had on my team, his name was Dominic, and he was kick butt. I mean, this guy just like, he genuinely was one of the best creative, talented artists I've ever seen when it comes to fast and affordable like website design. And even through the years, that was one of our strongest things at my firm, was our ability to build really well built and well messaged websites. And even when I would look across like the way, there were only about 2 to 3 other attorney marketing companies in particular that I think matched our level of design. And the majority of the rest, I don't think could. And so that was, I think, again, like talking about investment, you made that investment into the brand, into making sure that it looked like the kind of firm that you want to work with. Right. And then you can worry about delivering on the back end, but you got to make sure that you look the part, just like in every other aspect of life, or it certainly helps to build the right first impressions.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where I think having one firm handling that is so beneficial, because with the multiple, cooks in the kitchen, it's so difficult to have like consistency across the website. It messes up the footers when you're changing this page. It's not consistent with the messaging on the home page if you're, building out something several years later. So having that all under one roof, and it took a long time. I think part of the work on the front end of things, when we went through kind of our biggest kind of web redesign, was fixing a lot of the other pages and removing contact forms and removing, the footer, header, changing all these things that kind of impact across the page, getting rid of, URLs again that lead to nowhere, or things that you click on that say, basically take you to the wrong page, or whatever it might be. I mean, that's a big headache when you're trying to go through a web design, especially when you have, several hundred pages that you're trying to fix all at once. So, that's something that I think was a real important lesson to learn, is to have, as much consistency in the development and design of the website as a whole, because everything that you're going to then have to change down the road is going to be multiplied by the mistakes that you kind of put in on the front end. So that was a lot of work to, it wasn't like building from square one. We had already built up a lot of kind of SEO capital on some of these URL pages. So we couldn't just completely abandon it. But at the same time, it was kind of like, figuring out how to make all of those things work together. The messaging on the branding side of things, how are we presenting ourselves to the client, the potential client that is contacting us, having that kind of clean, well laid out page was really kind of like the first step in that direction. And then, over the years, I think you kind of helped us to really kind of start to tell our story in a way that responded to what are clients looking for, how are we the answer to that problem? And I know that you I kind of shared a lot of the insights that you got from a book. I think it's Building a Story Brand, but kind of walking through some of those exercises and really kind of figuring out how are we communicating who we are. As much as communicating information is helpful and having the right look is helpful, I think that the latest and most powerful transformation on the site was kind of telling our own story.
Totally. Yeah. Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I mean, that certainly is like, if there's a book recommendation, right, stemming from this podcast, I mean, that is certainly the one. If you are an attorney who is looking to build a dominating marketing presence, looking to become a master storyteller, not only in and through your website, but across all aspects of your marketing, even to your own team, and most especially maybe even to your own team when it comes to recruiting and careers and talent acquisition and finding the right players to join the bench, et cetera. Building a Story Brand is an incredible book by Donald Miller. And basically the simple concept of that book is He had been a writer for a long time. He's been in the business space, especially in consultative types of roles. And he just loved movies. And so he was studying movies and looking at basically what are the common storytelling frameworks when it comes to cinema. And basically he's like, look, I mean, like in Hollywood, people pretty much follow the exact same script over and over again, the exact same kind of framework when it comes to developing, the outline of a movie. They basically, without going into great detail, you've got a character, like the guy, right? A character who encounters a problem, has a big problem. Eventually he meets a guide, and that guide basically takes him along a path and gives him a plan that helps him avoid failure and ultimately achieve success. And that is the simple framework for the majority of movies that you've ever watched in your entire life, right? And the good ones in particular. And so then there's all these other layers beneath that. But again, you basically have a character who encounters a problem. That character then meets a guide who gives them a plan. And that plan then allows them to avoid failure and achieve success so that, of course, they can win. And so much of marketing, what happens is that law firms try to be the hero. They try to be the character, as if the client cares, in a sense, like that, how great you are. No. You are the guide to help them be the hero to achieve transformation in their life. And I just want to say that again, because like that right there, that is like marketing, right?
Yep.
You are the guide as an attorney, as a law firm. You're the guide who helps your client, the character, be a hero and therefore achieve transformation. And your whole goal in marketing is to speak to that character. And then the next layer beyond that is to show them how can you as a firm help guide them to the transformation that they're looking for. And so getting practical about that with Minick Law, that, and then fast forwarding a bit, we asked a lot of questions about, okay, well, is personal injury something that this firm wants to do? Because it was a big part of Minick Law for a time, right? This focus on personal injury. Family law was another big focus. We were building out landing pages for family law, for personal injury, for criminal practices left and right. And as we went through this building a story brand exercise, we started to really hone in. And of course, you started really honing in on, well, hey, at the end of the day, the bread and butter of what we're going to be about as a firm is DWI law, for a number of reasons, which I'll ask you about in a second, what those reasons were. But there was a lot of reasons why that was the right fit and the right time, the right pursuit. And so in building a story brand, now the question becomes, all right, we know who we're talking to people who have gotten a DWI. They're the character. We know the problem that they have. Their life is now in shambles. They just got one of the most severe charges that they'll probably ever get in their entire life. For the professional, if you will, this can be crippling, right? Basically, man, am I going to lose my job? Am I going to lose my status? Am I going to lose credibility? Am I going to lose reputation? This is serious stuff. And for others, maybe it's just more I don't know how I'm going to pay for this, or how is this going to reflect on my license that I need to be able to drive and do the things I do, whether I'm a mom or driving a semi truck, right, for work, whatever it is. Now we know who we're talking to. We know what their problems are. And now our whole job is to be the guy that says, we're the firm that knows how to help you go from where you're at, frustrated, scared, unsure, uncertain, to confident and clear that this charge is something that you will overcome in your life and everything's going to be okay.
That's so powerful.
That's marketing.
Yeah,
right?
that's beautiful. Right, it really is. I think that was what it's funny that you kind of emphasize that, but that was what was so resonated with me so much about that whole kind of way of thinking about your brand, is kind of moving from the role of hero to the role of guide, and letting the client be the hero in that story. Because I think for a long time at the office, we were the hero, we saw
right.
ourselves as the hero. And I think that's true for a lot of attorneys. I think a lot of our, the prestige of what law school that you went to, are you a member of super lawyers, all of these different things. We're kind of a profession that is constantly patting ourselves on the back and trying to explain why we are the best fit for this particular kind of case. So we're used to kind of having to maybe build up ourselves and toot our own horn. And there's some level to where that's important in terms of having credibility as a guide. But there was a true like mindset shift for us after having that conversation with you, where it's like, well, man, I thought we're the heroes. We're the superheroes. We're coming in with our cape. We're gonna take control of this, and we're gonna make things right. And there's a problem with that, first of all, because again, the client wants to see themselves as the hero in their story, which completely makes sense. And secondly, we don't always have that ability to swoop down and make everything right. We hope to kind of get the right outcome, but a lot of that stuff is outside of our control. The outcome in the courtroom is not within the control of the attorney. You can predict and do the best you can to make sure that you meet the expected outcome of what the individual case is going to dictate, what the judge is going to do on a case. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's outside of your control. And as a guide, you don't have to have the outcome figured out. The outcome that you're trying to achieve ultimately is not courtroom outcome, it's life outcome. Success is a life story, not a case story. And so that transformation, that shift in terms of going from the role of hero to the role of guide was probably one of the biggest like branding shifts that we've had as an office.
Yeah. And then this snowballs too into, when you begin to niche down on who you're talking to, right? So this was like going back to the beginning, when you're first getting started, like a lot of things in life, it's just like, all right, well, let's start shotgunning this approach, right? Let's start throwing some stuff at the wall and kind of see what sticks, right? Like, what do I like to do? Who are the kinds of people I like to work with? Where do I seem to be successful and seem to add the most value? And then your early days, working out of Rich's office, I mean, that's what it was like. It was like, all right, I'm doing some closings for Rich because I got to make ends meet. I'm helping this person here. We're doing, some stuff in the Hispanic community. I'm like, you're just sort of seeing what can stick. And then you begin to kind of hone in. All right, here are some of the things that can stick. You go to the next progression, which was again, okay, how do we kind of, in a sense, I would say, again, take this philosophy mindset, asking a lot of the right questions that naturally translated to search engine optimization, right? They ask, you answer. And then the next progression was, man, how do we build a brand that is truly seen as the expert, as the best, as the people that can really help you with the problem that you have? And so that again was the logo and the website. And then in the midst of kind of all of this sort of, looking at self and looking at kind of who do we want to be, that led to it, like basically that, the buzzword of niching down, right? And when you began to niche down into DWI, not only does it help you with your marketing and your messaging and your branding, which maybe sometimes can feel a little bit like 10,000 feet up in the air. It sounds like it's like language from the clouds, like, okay, my brand, all right, my image, my messaging, like what does that have to do with me getting more cases, growing my firm, and making more money and being profitable? Like, what the heck does any of that have to do and directly correlate? Well, the answer is that when it comes to sales, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, what is like the first question after you introduce yourself to a client? What is the first question that everybody asks, right? You say, I can help you. They say, great. Who else have you helped like me? That is the first question that most people are going to ask themselves. And they may even do it before they meet you, before they contact you.
Almost always now.
Right. Who else have you helped like me? And if the answer is, well, to be honest, you're the first, or you're the first of a handful of people, and we got clients all over the place. Well, that doesn't give me very much confidence. On the flip side, if you say, well, actually, we've helped 100, right? Or we've helped 500, or we've helped 10,000 people with DWI cases. Immediately, all the, now like talking about again, like being the hero on the website and kind of like always puffing up your chest. Like if your homepage looks like, first and foremost, like we are the national DWI lawyers certified legal guide expert for me, as the guy who has a job 9 to 5, I'm driving down the road one night. I get a DWI and I go to a website. I'm not in the legal world. I'm not in the industry. I have no idea what that badge means. None. It doesn't even mean anything to me. I look at it and I go, I guess that means something, but really that's not what I care about. But if I go to your website and I see this firm has handled 10,000 DWI cases, it's like no questions asked. Tell me, where do I sign, what the plan is, and how much it's going to cost, and I'll make a decision on if I think it's going to be the right fit for me. So like, why does all this branding and messaging and niching down like matter so much? It matters from at least like a sales and a growth standpoint, because the fundamental question that customers are asking before they contact you, or even when they contact you, is, who else have you helped like me?
We're going to take a pause here and stop the conversation. We're going to pick this up next week on next week's podcast. So make sure you tune back in to listen to what the rest of my brother Jeremy has advice-wise for you about some of the key moments in the marketing at our office. If you found the information in this podcast to be valuable, I simply ask that you pay it forward and share this podcast with another member of the legal community. Also, if you would leave us a rating or a review on whatever platform you are listening on, I would greatly appreciate it.